Hola, hola. So, not doing your numbers correctly, if you have a small business or you're an entrepreneur, can really mess you up in the long run. You might be tempted to take like shortcuts and all that, but it is very important to make sure that you have your books in order. And with me today to talk about just that is Yaremi from Q&B bookkeeping or numbers bookkeeping. So, hola, Yaremi. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hola, hola. Thank you for having me.
Hola, hola. I'm so glad that you're here, and especially right now, towards like the beginning of the year, by the time this episode comes out, which is a perfect time to get your stuff ready if you have a small business you're just an entrepreneur or you plan on doing it. You want to make sure that you're keeping track of all your expenses and stuff like that. But before we get into that whole bookkeeping is our topic. I want to talk a little bit about you and give you a chance to introduce yourself for those that may not know you and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Yaremi. Most people know me as Remi because people love to butcher my name. So I decided to take the last four letters of my name, which is Remi. So I am the founder of QB Numbers. I've been doing QB Numbers on my own for about 6 years, but I've been doing bookkeeping for a small business. I got started at a small business actually when I was 17, fresh out of high school, graduated a little early, and I got introduced to QuickBooks, and I've kind of been doing that ever since. 35 now, so I've been doing
Wow.
it for a
Okay.
while. Yeah, I started with QuickBooks Desktop, and that was my strength. I loved it until QuickBooks Online came to live, and I was like, "What is this?" But now most of our clients are at QuickBooks Online, and yeah, it's been a learning curve owning your own business, especially this long. It changes every year, so yeah.
Nice, nice. I'll tell you right now, I don't know anything about QuickBooks. I think I opened it one time. Again, I think I had it on a free trial or something. I think it's paid, right? Yeah. And I just wanted to try it out. And I was like, yeah, nope, closing it back. And so I started just using Excel. But for the things that I needed at that time, that was okay, I guess. And I was like, yeah, I'll just stick to Excel right now because I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm going to pull like kind of a question from your Instagram. So I'm cheating on some of the interview questions. Is
Yeah, no,
that,
it's fine.
and
And
because it's like, yeah.
I do want to say something about that. You don't know how many people I've met. They're like, "Oh, I think I have a QuickBooks subscription," and I'm like, "Okay, can I have access? Like, what's in there?" And they're like, "Nothing." And I'm like, so I always tell people it's like QuickBooks Online is like a gym membership, right? It's like
Uh-huh.
you purchase that gym membership, but it's unless you're going there and using it, it's useless. You're literally just wasting money every month because you're not doing anything with it. You're not the first one, but I will say if you're super small and starting up, a spreadsheet is perfect because you're only going to have a few transactions on your income and expenses. It's going to be like
Mm-hmm.
very simple as long as you're keeping up with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people will just have a spreadsheet and they're like, oh, I don't know, I haven't updated in 5 months. And it's the same thing. Like you just bought a gym membership, but you're not physically going to the gym. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was probably me. And then I do it all at the end and right before tax season. Just like just trying to remember everything. But I do want to kind of clarify what a bookkeeper does versus an accountant because
Yeah.
I kind of was the same way where I thought it was just two names for the same thing or whatever. One was a fancy name or maybe corporate or whatever.
Yeah.
What is the difference?
There's a huge difference. I don't like calling myself an accountant just because I don't that's like a nurse calling themselves a doctor, right? In
Mhm,
in
mhm,
my opinion, I don't know, a lot of people out there do call themselves like accountants, and
mhm,
to each their own because you technically don't have to have a degree to be called that in certain states.
mhm,
I
mhm,
personally don't like to. So, bookkeepers pretty much all they're doing is think of it of a filing cabinet, right? So, we're taking each and every single transaction and we're creating a folder and we're putting that transaction into the correct accounting folder that it needs to go. right? So
Mhm.
that at the end of the year, you have this like really pretty report that shows absolutely everything and it gives you your finances like in one sheet of paper and saying like this is your income minus your expenses, this is your actual profit, right?
Yeah.
That's technically the simple term of what a bookkeeper is. An accountant, a certified accountant, a CPA, they
Mhm.
actually went to school. They actually took a test to be an accountant. And that's the person that's technically your doctor, right? They have the
Mhm.
degree, they have like all the knowledge of like, all right, you take all this financials from a bookkeeper and then you apply it to your tax return or you
Yeah.
apply it to investments or you apply it to something more than just at glance of where your finances are. So
Yeah.
that's what a CPA is. There's also that middle person. So a lot of people don't know that there's people that file taxes and they're not accountants. So they're like just certified tax preparers. So if you
Okay,
pay
yeah.
attention, yeah, so if you pay attention to your tax return, like on the bottom, it says who prepare your taxes, right? Because essentially
Mhm.
a tax preparer, all they have to do is they have to get registered through the IRS. And I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if they have to take like a certification or not. They used to
Mhm.
have to. Now I don't know. Things have changed so much, but they used to have to do that. And they're just tax preparer. They're not actually CPAs or accountants.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a difference. I always tell people I like to call myself or refer myself as like the nurse, right? I'm the one
Mhm.
doing all the charts, taking all the information to pass it on to that CPA that has all the knowledge. Because you got to remember also CPAs, they have to stay up to date every year on the changes, like what
Yes.
changed, right? Because they change the laws all the time of what's permitted, like what's not. Like during COVID, meals was 100% permitted. But before that, it was only 50%. However, me on my bookkeeping, everything's going 100%. It's the
Yeah.
CPA's job to split it and say only 50 is allowed this year. This year, 100% is allowed. And
Yeah.
that's the part that people don't understand that it takes a lot. And that's why I don't do taxes. I stay away from them. I
That was
understand a
so
lot of
complicated. Yeah.
yeah, it is, and you have to stay up to date. It's a nightmare.
Mhm.
So during COVID, they made changes after people were filing.
Oh,
So
wow.
they were accepting like tax returns, and then they changed this thing and say, "Oh, sorry, this is allowed." So a lot of CPAs had to go back and amend stuff.
Oh,
So I
dang.
could not live with that anxiety. I would go crazy. So I stay away from filing taxes, doing anything. I like to stick with what I know, which is bookkeeping, and then pass it on because I
Yeah.
it's not for me. So I always tell people make sure when you interview, you're asking the right questions like, are you a CPA? Are you certified? Are you just a tax preparer? Like, what's your expertise? What's your
Yeah.
niche?
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't do taxes either. The stress que my CPA is always during tax season is like ni la puedes like really talk. She's always so quick during that time. And I was like, "Ooh, I'm glad I don't do taxes." So he like, "Here you go, my
Yeah.
paperwork." And so I never thought about it that way, like that you're kind of like the nurse and getting all the paperwork and then you just give it to the CPA and like, "All right, here you go. Este you figure it out." I did this part. I got all the receipts and documentation and whatever. Now pass it on to the CPA. And that's the important part as well. So people will be like, "Oh, I could do it myself or whatever." But let me tell you, se te olvida or like you forget. Like me, I have freaking habit of being a procrastinator. Y so I'm doing it now. Ahorita que estoy, I got a lot of stuff done this year and now I'm having to go back and remember it's like, what was that thing that I spent money on? And so
Mm,
I have trying to put everything in. And so I want to talk about that, the importance of bookkeeping as a small business.
I can talk about this for hours, but it's just it's just so it's crazy because I think for me, it's the most important part, and it's the one part that 95% of business owners ignore. Um,
Mhm.
it is not sexy. Like accounting, bookkeeping, it's like it's even I struggle with like social media because it's like, how do you make this look pretty? How do you make this be exciting? It is not like who the hell wants to be like, "Oh, what's like my expenses? What's my nobody cares. Like I get it because I'm a business owner, my husband's a business owner. So I get it. But it's so important because it's just like being sick, right? Like when you're sick,
Mhm,
you're like, oh, no, no, no quiero ir al doctor, no quiero ir al doctor, no quiero ir al doctor. And then you keep ignoring it, you keep ignoring it, right? And then it goes on and on and on. And it's like when
mhm,
you're to the point where it's like, all right, you can't, you're struggling, you got to go. At that point, you're, it's going to be bad. And that's how
mhm,
it is with accounting, right? So just think about it. If you don't do your taxes one year, then there it goes another year. And now you have penalties, and now you have late fees, and now you have other stuff. Your taxes can't get done unless you have your bookkeeping done. Because
mhm,
what's going to happen is if you don't have your bookkeeping done, which is like all your financials, they're going to ask you for all your statements. They're going to ask you for all your receipts. So now you have this person, right? Like you say, your CPA on
mhm,
tax season that's super stressed, that slam is trying to get the stuff done for the people that already have their bookkeeping because it's simple.
mhm.
They're like, okay, I can spend 2 hours on this and be done. Where when you turn in your statements and they're adding, subtracting each line item for 12 months,
Mhm.
first, it's gonna cost you money, it's gonna take longer, and most likely they're gonna miss things because that's a whole year they gotta put together in a matter of a month, if not less, right? Or you gotta
Yeah,
file an extension. So that's one, because people wanna do their taxes, like, that's their number one priority, right?
yeah,
The other side to it is it's not just the taxes. That's what people always focus on because it's mandatory and you have to do it, right? So that's what business owners are always like, I need it for my taxes. I need it for my taxes. Well, the other side to it is growth. So
mhm,
if you start small, everyone starts as a small business, as a startup. But the goal of business, nobody starts a business to have a hobby. Let's be
mhm.
real.
Yeah,
So you want growth, you need to know where your money's going. You need to know if your money's coming in and how much of it. Not just
mhm.
that, but like people focus, especially social media. I see all these people posting, I have $1 million business. I have a, it's, do you have $1 million business? Is that your profit or is that just your income? Because if your
Yeah,
income is, let's say, $10,000 and your expenses are 15, then do you really have that kind of
yeah,
money? No, you don't. You're losing money. So that's the biggest part business owners miss is just because you're getting $10,000 doesn't mean that you're profiting $10,000. You could
mhm.
either be making money or you could be losing money. And you only know that if you're doing your bookkeeping up to date every month, because then you get to look at those numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, porque, like, how do you expect to make educated business decisions if you wanna, like, push more product or whatever, if you're not tracking of your expenses and how much money you're bringing in and stuff, like,
Mhm.
yeah, like, how are you gonna know that if you're not on top of this stuff and esperando like me all last minute? You know, then
Yeah.
you can't make good decisions.
Right, right. And at the end of the year, and the other part is let's hope you are profitable. You're making a lot of
Yes.
money. And but at that point, then you start falling behind because not all that money, instead of either investing or moving it right to your Roth or paying yourself whatever, you're leaving it there. Now you're paying taxes on that money.
Mhm.
Right? But if it's January, it's too late because whatever was in that bank and whatever net profit you made in December, that's what you're paying out on.
Yeah.
So that's the other part that gets missed. It's like you have to learn to keep what you earn. Otherwise, it's all going to the IRS.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, that's a hard lesson that a lot of us in our community we have to learn. Y yo también, like terca, I want to do all this stuff and then I forget about it. I don't have the time. And I can't even imagine. And mine's is like simple, like it's the podcast and little and stuff like this, right? I can imagine a business, get like a restaurant or pushing some type of product that this constantly you're busy all day to try to like make sure that you're
Yeah.
doing the bookkeeping and all that stuff. But a veces no, we don't want to let go or delegate or something and want to do it on our own and everything. And you kind of like touched on it a little bit earlier, but so I want to kind of go back to that question because you like me, tercos a veces you're gonna get the DIYers. So I do want to give them some tips and at least, or maybe like you said, they're not ready for the bigger
Mhm.
bookkeeping. So,
Yep.
what kind of tips do you have for them?
So definitely do something. So if you don't have the money, we all know when you start, you barely have money. You are doing a hobby when you start, right? You're like
Yeah.
counting the pennies and trying to make it work. You're wearing all the hats for the business. Like it's fine. But you have to create something that works for you. So like right now for yourself, you have a spreadsheet. And I actually have a spreadsheet that it's pretty much like a P&L. It gives you a P&L at the end of the year. So
Okay.
again, you just have to stay on it. So I'll share the link with you. So it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much you entering, okay, what you made in your income, right? What were your expenses this month? And then it'll give you a total. So it already adds, it has all the equations and it adds everything for you. And then I created tabs. So each tab is like a month. So that way at the end of the year, it just adds it up and it gives you the total. I say if you're just starting up and you don't have money to hire someone, is create yourself a spreadsheet, right? If you're every business is a little different. But for example, yourself, you're like, I do the podcast, and then you said you do one other thing besides the
I'm
podcast.
starting to sell products, so my course, main things, and then eventually maybe do like sponsorships or speaking in,
Okay. Yeah.
events or
So like,
whatever.
right.
Yeah.
So on that spreadsheet, what I would do is I would literally create three income lines and say podcasts and then products and then partnerships, right? So whenever
Mhm.
you do get income, then you put in that specific income line so that
Mhm.
you start getting on a habit. So when you do have a system, you split it that way. You know exactly where your money's coming from. And then you can know at the end of the quarter, which one's profitable? Which one should I focus on more? Things like that. Expenses, same
Mhm.
thing. You know what your expenses are, right? Internet, I don't know, whatever it is, make sure you put those categories in there. So then when you're doing it every month, it just becomes easier. So say
Okay.
that create your own spreadsheet. I'll share mine. But if it's yours and you want to be simple, understand it, just do that, right? But make sure you stay on it every month. The other thing is if you are techie, right, then get on QuickBooks and pay someone a one-time fee. That you don't know how many times I reach out to people to be like, hey, I just need to jump on a one-on-one, show me X, Y, and Z. I'll pay you for your time, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people do get back to you. So it's like same thing. Shoot,
Yeah.
find five bookkeepers, and then you're like, hey, can I pay you for a 1 hour and you can show me tips and tricks on like how to do it? That's a little bit if you have it to pay someone just to show you a few simple tricks of this is how you do it. If you want to do it yourself, I'll show you. Let's spend an hour, dive into your business, and I'll show you. Now it's just your job to do it. That would be my biggest thing. Like I do it all the time. I think that's the one thing I enjoy the most. Honestly, I don't enjoy the day to day. I've been doing it for too long. I enjoy more
Yeah.
of the educational part because I think for me, especially like Latinos, right, or Latinas,
Mhm.
we're such hard workers. Like we are invented to, we're always starting businesses. We always have ideas. Like we work our
Yeah.
asses off, but we always lack the fact of investing into learning, investing
Yep.
into let me learn how to do this so that I can be better at this. We work hard, not smart most of the time.
Facts. Mhm.
Yeah, because that's how we were raised. It's like
Yeah.
you want money, work harder. It's always been that. So I think for me, even with all my clients, I'm like, I teach them how to use QuickBooks. Like I show them what we're doing because for me, you need to know where your money's at. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of clients come to me because they've had bookkeepers steal money from them.
Oh
And
wow.
I'm like, yeah, because half of the time you're handing your stuff off and you're just like, here you go. And then you don't even know how to get to your reports. And that's super important. So I would say definitely invest either one, the money or the time. And if you can do both, do both.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is basically the next question, since you brought it up, of now there's going to be a point in time that you're going to need a bookkeeper and you're going to have to go look for one. So what are some maybe interview questions, or how to make sure that you get a good bookkeeper that's not going to scam you?
Yeah. So I would say first, get references if you can. So anyone that you interview, at least interview 3 people because you have to find somebody that speaks your language first.
Mhm.
And I'm not just speaking like Spanish or English, but there's a lot of people out there in accounting that use like all this like crazy terms that you're like,
Mm.
what are you saying? Right. Same with CPAs. You have to get on a call and make sure that they understand you and then you understand them when you ask them a question and then they answer you. And if you don't understand, say, can you explain that to me?
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. The number 2 is ask for referrals. Say, okay, can I speak to 2 of your clients? Would you mind sharing their information? Because I tell you right now, if you are a good bookkeeper, you have clients that will be more than happy to speak to somebody and say, yeah, like I've been
Mhm.
working with them X amount of time and this is what they do for me, whatever. I've had to do it a couple times with people they came over because their last bookkeeper stole from them and I had to go through the woodworks.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I get it. They're coming from a place of not trusting. So I
Mm.
had to build that relationship. So I think they spoke to 2 or 3 of my clients. I had to send them a resume. And I was like, I haven't done a resume in I don't know how many years. Yeah, it
I'd
was
be
a
scared
lot.
too. How much la robó? Like, how much did they lose?
So I think it was like $1,500.
Oh, okay, yeah,
It
shit.
was either between 1,500 or 2,000. It was a while ago. It was almost 3 years
Yeah,
ago.
okay.
But so what happened was the bookkeeper was writing checks to
Mm.
random people. So they wrote 2 or 3 checks to friends or family or whatever. And that's how they were stealing money pretty much because and that's the other thing you have to remember with the bookkeeper and a CPA, most of the time they have access to your account numbers, your routing numbers. So you have to be very careful with who you're hiring. And not just that, but you have to learn the system. Like you don't have to know the ins and outs, but you have to be able to jump in there and say, like, just glance it and say, okay, my bank account looks good. Like I see the
Mhm.
transactions, like, just simple stuff like that. Just like looking at your bank account. You know
Yeah.
what you spend. Like
Yeah.
just jump on your bank account and see what transactions are happening.
Oh,
It's the same concept. I think people just get nervous and they feel like it's more difficult than it is, but it's really not. It's just
yeah,
dealing with the feeling uncomfortable part.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, references, make sure they speak your language. And just honestly, for me, I always go with my gut.
yeah.
Like, there's not whether it's this industry, hiring people, anyone, like, if something feels off, 99% it's something's wrong.
Yeah, I agree, because that's one of the things too, is like, how do you, like, say that? It's like it's vibes, but is take the time to talk to them and everything, like, uh and you'd be surprised like how much they one, if they don't want to, like, they're too busy or not wanting to talk too much, well, off there, I already know que no te van a ayudar. They're like gonna be, it's gonna be a pain in the ass to try to get them to help you to or
Mhm.
explain anything. But if they're willing, like today with my insurance agent, I think they spent like 30 minutes and he was going through everything and explaining things to me. I learned more stuff today. I was like, dang, I didn't do that for my last two properties. And I was like, now I know. Yes, but so things like that they took the time to just have a conversation with you. And I'm assuming it's the same thing with the bookkeeper, like just
Yep.
have a conversation, ask them the questions, yeah, what kind of vibes they give you and
Yep.
stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and ask anything because I'm telling you, the amount of calls I get, and they're like, "Oh, me da pena. I feel dumb asking this question," and I'm like, "Why?" And one of my strongest saying, and my dad told me this like my whole life, and I'm like, "Oh man!" Like now I'm saying things that my dad used to say to me, but he would always be like, "La pregunta tonta es la que no se hace."
Mm, yeah.
And now I always tell that, and I'm like, "Man, I'm a señora." Like, I'm literally saying things that my dad used to tell me now, but it's true.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a dumb question except for the one
Yeah.
you're not asking, because it's like, how do you know if you don't ask? And honestly, I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for people that are not doing their finances, that are not doing their bookkeeping, you know? So that's what I'm
Yeah.
here. So like just ask. And if I don't know the answer, I'm like super honest. I'm like, oh, I don't know, but I'm like, I can find out. Like
Mhm.
I've like part of a big community. So we all help each other if it's something that I don't know. But it's just ask questions, anything you can think of that you may
Mhm.
think that is dumb, or you may think that is like super complicated or small, just ask and then see what answer you get. And like I said, interview at least three, because then you are able to say, this person didn't tell me this, and this person didn't tell me this, but this person said that. You're able to make a decision that you're not just going blind, but you're making an educated
Mhm.
decision at that point. And to be honest, at some point, two of the people should be telling you almost the same thing if they're the
That's
right,
true.
you
That's
know?
true.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder how long did that person take to realize que they were stealing from them?
I want to say, so it's a crazy story. So that was, they had a company that were
Mhm.
doing all their fine. It was a it's an HOA business.
Okay.
So they have 140 condos. So they had gone from one company and they had really bad customer service. So they moved on to this company that they were referred to. So they
Yeah.
were transitioning to them, and then they were like onboarding them, getting them on board and things like that. So within the first 6 months that they were doing the onboarding and getting all their stuff up to date, and that's typically when you get all the information, because that's when you get all the accounts, that's when you get the login,
Yeah.
like everything. The first 6 months, the property manager caught it because she had been living there for 20 plus years,
Mhm.
and then she became the property manager of the property and was getting paid. So she
Mhm.
knew all her vendors. She knew all the tenants. She knew like
Oh,
all the names. So when she questioned them, it was like, what are these checks for? And the person was like, they're for your vendors. And she was like, no, they're not. Those are not our vendors.
yeah.
And she's the one that brought it up and started questioning the company. And that's
Mhm.
when I was referred to her, and that's when I came on, and it was just, yeah, it was just a mess. And then we went through it.
Oh.
It was only 3 checks that they had written, and they did get cash. We didn't get our money back because it was
Oh.
so they have insurance and they could have fought it, but because it was under a certain amount, they were like, it's gonna
Um.
cost more money to try to get that money back than just like letting it go.
Dang.
But yeah, it was actually the property manager who caught it.
Oh, nice. Like, wow.
Mhm.
Wow. I
Yeah.
wonder how many other companies she was sneaking money off. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And
Yeah.
that's what's so wild. And honestly, for me, anybody that works for me, I do a background check, because if they have anything that deals with money, like if they had debt, if they have anything like that, I'm like, it's a red flag for me. It's a no, absolutely no, because
Yeah.
you're dealing with people's finances. Like you're And I also have a lot of safeguards where I'm the only one that can access the bank account and things like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like nowadays there's so many scams and just so many things that I'm like, you can't trust anybody nowadays. So
No, yeah, everything could get scammed. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
That
So
is cool. So with that, like I saw like on your Instagram that you mentioned of that you usually have like monthly meetings with your clients and stuff. And with those monthly meetings, is that what you recommend, like a monthly meeting or whatever? And what kind of questions should they be asking? One, they should be checking in you're not stealing or whatever, right? So what other
yeah,
questions should they be asking during these
yeah.
meetings?
So typically in our monthly meetings, what we do is we send them financials. So we're already, before our meeting, they get an email with their P&L, which is their profit and loss. And that's pretty much a document just showing like what you made your income, all the expenses, and then your net profit. and we sent that. We sent their balance sheet, and there's other reports depending on the kind of client we have. But pretty much that's where we go in line by line item through our meeting. And then we're just like, all right, this month, this is what you made, this is what your expenses were, this is what you pay your subcontractors, like all those little things. And then this is what you made, right? So that's typically nobody knows their business like the
Mhm.
owner. Like nobody
Yeah.
does. Like you know where your income's coming from. You know where your expenses, right? You know if you bought a car this year or
Right.
all of that. So when you look at that report, that's when you start going line item, right? So I would suggest print it if you can, grab a ruler, and as you're going through your meeting, you're like literally going down the list, just being like, oh yeah, this looks about right. Yep, this looks about
Mhm.
right. If you have a subcontractor, you pay them every month and you pay them every month $1,000, right?
Yeah.
If your P&L shows that you pay subcontractors $10,000 that month, and you're like, wait a minute, I only have one subcontractor and I only pay them 1,000. Like, where is this 10? That's
Yeah.
where you start asking questions. That's when in the meeting, then you say, okay, can you open that line item? Because I don't think I paid that much. They open
Yeah.
that line item and then you can see what made up that 10,000, right? What made up that 1,000. And it could be as simple as, okay, it just got put in the wrong filing, right? Like I was
Mhm.
saying, it got put in the
Yeah.
wrong folder and then we may just have to move it. Or is one of those things where somebody wrote a check to Joe
Yeah.
Schmo, right? And then you're like, and then at that point, you're like, wait a minute, that's not my check. Like, where did that come from? So those are the
Yeah.
things that you start asking questions off of the financials that your bookkeeper is sending you.
Okay. Yeah.
Or if you bought a car, right? You bought a car last year and you forgot to tell me, like most of my clients did, and then you don't see it in there, and then you're like, "Oh, where's my car?" And I'm like, "What car? Did you buy a car?" Right? So those are the little things that in our monthly meetings most of the time we catch because business owners are so busy that they're like, "Yeah, who? I got to tell her what?"
Yeah.
Until those financials come and they're like, "Oh, my deduction's not there for X, Y, and Z." And I'm like, I never got the paperwork for this car that you bought. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So little things like that, those are the things that you have to pay attention in your meetings. Make sure that you're getting reports. Make sure that you're asking if you're not getting them, say, okay, how do I show me how to get them in case I want to jump in there middle of the month and pull them.
Yeah.
Make sure you know when you're getting them. Are you getting them on the 10th of the month, on the 15th of the month? Ask those questions so that you're not just sitting around expecting something and not getting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So for those that do want to move forward and start looking for a bookkeeper, what kind of services do you provide? Or we kind of mentioned one that you do kind of like a one-on-one call as
Mhm.
like training, but yeah, like how can they work with you?
So I work with two types of businesses. One is HOAs, and then the
Mhm.
other one is service-based businesses. Those are the two things that I like to stay within.
Mhm.
Um, that's just what our niche has been. I only work on QuickBooks. So if you want to use any other system like Zero, Wave, or whatever is out there now,
Mhm.
I don't work with any of them. I only do QuickBooks. Like I said, I like to stick to what I know. So QuickBooks Online, I will still work with desktop only because I love desktop. It's how I learned bookkeeping,
Yeah.
but I would definitely advise to move over to online. So I do monthly bookkeeping for the most. Quarterly bookkeeping if it's a smaller business. It
Mhm.
doesn't make sense to charge them this like huge fee for a monthly when you only have 5 transactions a month or something crazy like
Yeah.
that. So we either do monthly or quarterly. We also set up accounts right now, especially I'm like, there have a bunch of clients that don't have QuickBooks, don't have anything, and now we got to do all of 2024. So
Oh.
we set up everything from like scratch. We set up the filing cabinet, as I like to call it. It's truly called a chart of accounts, but
Uh-huh.
we set everything up so that you're just pretty much giving us the information. We put it in there and you have your financials.
Nice. Nice. And I guess well, I'll have all that your information linked. But I guess my final question is for those that are interested in becoming a bookkeeper, What's your advice for them on how to get started?
First, you have to learn bookkeeping. So do not do it through QuickBooks. Books is great as a system. The
Mhm,
problem is when you go in there to learn, they're showing you how to use their system. They're not showing you how to be a bookkeeper, how to do
mm,
the
mhm,
accounting side of it, right? So I would say definitely find a program that shows
mhm,
you how to do bookkeeping. I know there's one, I can't remember the name. It's been mentioned in our community that
mhm,
people have done it. So when they have like junior bookkeepers that are just starting, that's kind of
mhm,
what they make them go through. But yeah, definitely learn bookkeeping. And then the other two is find community.
mhm,
That for me has been huge. I did it when I first started and I will never go back. It was like the biggest game changer. Having a community, having somebody that you can talk to when you have this either difficult clients or when you have a
mhm,
client that you're like, how do I do this? Because they may have a different CRM system, right? That you don't know
mhm,
how it connects or things like that. Just community in general, it's huge for business, for bookkeeping, anything. So definitely find community, educate yourself, and pick one system for accounting. Do not pick the shiny object and, oh, let me try this one. Let me try this one. Don't do it. Just
That would
find
be
the
me.
Yes, find the one you like and stick to it. Because every year they come up with all these different accounting systems and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this one's better. It's just like social media. Oh, Instagram's better than Facebook. It's the same thing with accounting and all
Mhm.
these accounting softwares. So pick one, learn it, become an expert in it, and stick to it.
Yeah, that's good advice, especially for me, porque that's my, I guess, goal for next year is to just focus on one or two things. Because I had a habit of like starting too many projects, and then it's like I didn't really do the best with any of them. So now it's like, all right, next year, no más, I'm just gonna focus on one or two things, one or two social medias, because I was trying to do everything, TikTok, Pinterest, like YouTube and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pick two. And I guess one might be gone. TikTok might be gone
I
anyway.
know.
I
I
just
saw that
saw that
posted.
today.
Yeah, but they said the same thing last year, didn't they? So
Yeah, they did. So we'll see. But yeah, I'll pick two of them. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing the importance of bookkeeping and giving your tips and tricks. I'm gonna, like I said, I'll have all your information below and follow your social media because she's gonna put some.
I'm trying to work on like not DIYs, but more like tips on this is how you
Yeah.
do stuff. Social media is not my friend.
It's, yeah.
I dread doing it, and I feel like it frustrates me because I feel like it takes me forever, and that's why I think
Hmm.
I like bookkeeping because it's like I know what I'm doing. I can just jump in here do it. Whereas like
Yeah.
social, like so I'm trying to get better at doing more content of just teaching people what to
Hmm.
do, what not to do, and things like that. So definitely start following so you can see all the tips and tricks and stuff that people don't even pay attention, like the BOI report that everyone's asking about, and half of the people are like, "What is it?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just
I was
things
like,
like
huh?
that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for being here, and I will see everyone in the next episode.
Thank you so
Bye.
much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and share this episode so others can also find this podcast. Don't forget to follow me on all my social medias listed in the show notes below, where you can also find resources to help you in your financial journey. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the podcast, you can find that information in the show notes. Other than that, thank you so much for your support, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.